The curse of mastery evolution is a story we think we understand. A story of progress, of improvement, a relentless climb towards perfection. We look at the eagle with its eye that can spot prey from a mile away, and we see mastery. We look at the cheetah, a perfect engine of speed, and we see mastery. We assume that to be better, to be more specialized, is to be more successful. But the fossil record tells a different, more terrifying story. It whispers a paradox from the deep past. That perfection is a trap. That mastery is often a death sentence. The graveyards of this planet are filled with the bones of magnificent creatures who were too good at what they did. They were the perfect species, and their perfection is precisely what killed them. The Ghost King of the Forest. Imagine a world at the edge of the last ice age. Sprawling forests of birch and pine stretch across Europe, and moving through the dappled light is a creature of breathtaking majesty. We call it the Irish Elk. But it was not an elk, and it was not confined to Ireland. Its true name is Megaloceros giganteus, the giant deer. It stood 7 feet tall at the shoulder, larger than any deer alive today. A true titan of the forest. But its size was not its most astonishing feature. Its crown was. Resting on its head was the largest set of antlers ever to exist in the history of life, stretching up to 12 feet from tip to tip, weighing nearly 90 pounds. This was not a flaw. It was a signal of ultimate perfection, a product of relentless sexual selection. The male with the largest, most magnificent antlers was demonstrating his absolute genetic fitness. He could find enough food with enough minerals to grow this absurdly extravagant ornament. He was the strongest, the healthiest, the king. He was perfectly adapted to his world, and that was the fatal flaw. The murder weapon. The world does not stand still. As the Ice Age ended, the climate began to change rapidly. The environment to which the Megaloceros was so perfectly attuned began to vanish. The forests it knew, rich in the specific herbs and shrubs it needed, started to shift. The soil composition changed. The available nutrients, the vast amounts of calcium and phosphate required to grow its colossal crown year after year, became scarce. The very thing that signaled its perfection, the antlers, became an anchor, a metabolic prison. They were too costly to grow in a nutrient-poor world. They were too cumbersome to navigate through the denser, new-growth forests that were replacing the ancient woodlands. Evolution had pushed the Megaloceros into a corner. The pressure from females to select for ever larger antlers could not reverse course fast enough to cope with the changing reality. The king was killed by its own crown, a victim of its own success, and it was not the only one. The titan of the steppe. Now, journey from the forests to the vast, frozen plains of the north, the Mammoth Steppe, a cold, dry world stretching from Spain to Canada. And here lived another masterpiece of evolution, the Woolly Mammoth. It was an icon of the Ice Age, perfectly engineered for a world of extreme cold. A thick, shaggy coat of hair insulating it from the brutal winds, a dense layer of fat beneath its skin. Ears that were tiny compared to modern elephants, minimizing heat loss. Specialized hemoglobin in its blood, allowing for oxygen transport in freezing temperatures. Its teeth were high-crowned plates, perfect for grinding the tough, abrasive grasses of the steppe. Its entire being was a testament to succeeding in one of the harshest environments on Earth. It was a specialist of the cold, a titan of the tundra. Perfect. The great thought of the killer was the same, a changing climate. But this time, the weapon wasn't a change in vegetation alone. It was the heat. As the glaciers retreated, the world warmed. The Great Mammoth Steppe, the vast, cold, dry grassland that was the mammoth's entire world, began to disappear. It was replaced by something else. Wetter, boggier ground, thick, dense forests. The world the mammoth was built for was melting away from beneath its feet. A specialist in a generalist's world. The mammoth's strengths now became its fatal flaws. Its specialized teeth, designed for steppe grass, were ill-suited for the new diet of forest leaves and shrubs. Its massive weight and pillar-like legs, perfect for solid, frozen ground, became a liability in the new marshy landscape. It would get stuck. Its entire physiology, fine-tuned to conserve every ounce of heat in the bitter cold, was now a disadvantage in a warming world. It was prone to overheating. The woolly mammoth was an expert in a world that no longer existed. It was a magnificent relic, perfectly adapted to yesterday. And so, like the Megaloceros, it vanished. The unspecialized ape. Now, look at our own ancestors, living in that same changing world. Small, scrawny primates shivering in the shadow of these dying giants. We were not perfect, far from it. We were not specialized for anything. Our bodies were not perfectly adapted to the cold like the mammoths, nor were we perfectly adapted to the heat of our African homeland. We had no massive antlers, no terrifying claws, no incredible speed. We were masters of nothing, and that was our secret weapon. Because we were not masters of one trade, we became jacks of all trades. Our defining trait was not perfection, it was adaptability. When the big game disappeared, we learned to fish and hunt rabbits. When the climate got cold, we learned to sew clothes from hides and live in caves. When the climate got warm, we shed the clothes and followed the new herds. Our diet was ridiculously varied. Our homes were temporary. Our greatest tool was our brain, a machine built not for one solution, but for inventing 1,000 different solutions to 1,000 different problems. We were the ultimate generalists in a world that was killing its specialists, the tyranny of perfection. This is the great humbling lesson from the graveyard of deep time. The fatal flaw of evolution is often not a weakness. It is a strength pushed to its absolute limit. Evolution has no foresight. It rewards what works right now in this specific environment. If being bigger is better today, evolution will select for bigger. If having longer antlers is better today, evolution will select for longer antlers. It optimizes a species for a single moment in time. But time does not stand still. The environment always changes. And when it does, the specialist, the perfect species, is trapped. It is a key, exquisitely cut for a lock that no longer exists. The generalist, meanwhile, messy and imperfect, is like a lockpick. It can find a way to open the new door. Are we the new specialists? This lesson from the Ice Age echoes with a terrifying relevance today. For 10,000 years, human civilization has been in a period of remarkable climatic stability. And in that stability, we have become the most successful specialists the world has ever seen. We are perfectly adapted to a world of cheap, abundant fossil fuels. We are perfectly adapted to a globalized system of trade that brings us food and goods from thousands of miles away. We are perfectly adapted to a financial system built on the assumption of perpetual growth. Our cities, our power grids, our very way of life, these are our colossal antlers. Our thick, shaggy coats, our magnificent adaptations to a very specific set of conditions. What happens when those conditions change? What happens when the cheap energy runs out? What happens when the stable climate gives way to chaos? What happens when the global supply chains break? Will our greatest strengths become our fatal flaws? Will our interconnectedness, which brings us so much prosperity, become a vector for rapid cascading collapse? Are we, the ultimate survivors, now building for ourselves the perfect evolutionary trap? The generalist's gamble. The story of survival is not about achieving a state of perfection. It is about retaining the capacity to change. It is about not betting everything on a single strategy. It is about valuing adaptability over optimization, resilience over sheer power. The ghosts of the Megaloceros and the mammoth are a warning. They whisper that the mightiest crowns become the heaviest burdens, and that in the long, brutal game of existence, the only true perfection is the ability to become imperfect again. To be willing to change, to adapt, to survive. To be the lockpick, not the key. Subscribe to Epoch Echoes, where the lessons from the dead can help the living survive.